It's so great to have you guys here. It is Monday. It is 8:30, which means it's time for Conversations with Teresa. Thank you guys so much. Your thoughts, your energy, your questions, your comments, your whether it's online or if I see you on the street and you're saying, "Oh, this was great," or I caught that," or things like that. All of that stuff is so encouraging. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've got another great one for you. I'm hoping that you guys are keeping up. We are talking about us. We are talking about our bodies. We are talking about the insides. We're talking about the outsides. We are talking about perimenopause, menopause. We are talking about being stronger. We are talking about empowering ourselves. We are talking some good stuff. So I'm hoping that you guys are ready because we got another good one for you. So we have a great friend with us tonight, Dr. Vyvyane Loh. She has been on our podcast before, and man, she's just we called her, we deemed her the walking encyclopedia. Whatever question you throw at her, she's just like, "Yep, I got that. I got that. I got that." Coming from medicine and understanding that, hey, I got more to give than what she was just taught. Then she did her own research and she did her own thing and she's doing her own thing and she is phenomenal. And before I go any further, I'm going to invite her on to the studio just to be like, "What's up?" So, Dr. Loh, what's up?
Oh my God, Teresa, it's so good to see you again.
Oh my gosh, it feels like forever.
When we get started, we don't stop.
We don't. We got lots to talk about. We got lots to say. So, Vyvyane, would you do us a favor? Will you remind us of how amazing you are? I know that sounds like crazy, right? But remind us just about what you do and just kind of your journey. Give us a little snippet about what's going on.
Okay, great. So I am a physician. I'm board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. And I really specialize in body composition, metabolism, and also your immune health. Now, the reason that I did a whole switcheroo in my career was that I realized quite early that the healthcare system is focused on managing illness, right? And it's not about reversing disease and bringing you back to health. In fact, we only define health in the medical system as an absence of disease, which is kind of a low standard, right? Yeah. So I went back to the books and taught myself about nutrition and sleep and exercise and immunology, just to make sure that, the science was updated. Because the other thing is that the medical school curriculum still relies on what we were taught, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It hasn't changed that much, even though the science has been updated to a great degree, right? Yeah. And so trying to bring medicine up to date with the science and to help people reverse any chronic diseases, because 80% of chronic diseases like high blood pressure, like your diabetes, your kidney disease, they are reversible. Fatty liver, that's all reversible. And if you haven't gotten that yet, but you maybe have a family history, you can prevent those diseases as well.
Yeah. And that is, it's a little scary. On a little bit off topic, I was at the grocery store earlier today and there was a guy behind me in like the other lane. And he was like, "Oh, I always see people with this." And I don't know what he was talking. I think he was talking about like Eggo waffles or something.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, I want to try that. He was like, "But I got diabetes, but I think I'm going to try it anyway." And I was just like, "Oh, what?" Like, and I was like, so much of me wanted to be like, "Don't do it. Don't do it."
Okay, but Teresa, can I tell you that if you go to a hospital and you'll be watching them serve the meals to patients who have diabetes, and they got waffles and pancakes and syrup on that, right? And you're like, we're in a hospital and he or she, they may have diabetes. I don't think we should be doing that, right? So there's kind of this misalignment.
Yeah.
We're not kind of getting it.
Oh my gosh. But it made me think about you. It made me think about like so many different things. And actually, I think one of the things that I'm realizing more and more doctors or physicians that I'm speaking to, uh, as of late, they are kind of doing what you're doing. They're like, okay, I learned this. I got this education, but this isn't serving me. This is not what I signed up for. And I'm so appreciative of what we have. Like, I'm not knocking it or anything like that. It's so great. Um, in the sense of because I don't know, right? So,
Well,
but
I think most doctors, they want to spend more time, right? They want to have
yeah,
the room to sit and talk to their patients and explain things. But you got 10 minutes, they're overbooked.
yes,
Just your waiting time to see a doctor maybe months, in some places even years out.
yes.
And so, you're just realistically not going to be able to, give the patient what they need that way.
Hmm. Yeah. So anyway, I thank you. Thank you so much for, all the years of study that you did. And then on top of that, deciding like, okay, this is reversible. This is changeable. This is not, I don't want to just treat the illness and just going so much further so that, even right now we can talk about, just talk about
Yes.
all your stuff. I
Yes.
want to talk about something that you brought up. We did an event. Was it last year? Was it only last year or a year and a half ago? We did an event, intentionally you,
Yes, that's right.
and
I found my
you.
old T-shirt.
I know, right? I wore it probably 2 days ago. And you said something then that I didn't like. I heard it, but didn't really catch it until later on. And you had mentioned how when we go to the doctor's office and they ask you, have you fallen lately? Or, they check your balance, like different things. And I was like, why was that? I didn't understand why that was important. But as I am doing more and more research about um, perimenopause and menopause and in particular osteoporosis, right? I'm learning how important it is for us to be paying attention to our bone strength, our muscle strength, our balance, and all of this stuff. And understanding that, estrogen obviously plays this incredible role, but we have to start asking ourselves these questions, not when we're 52 and 53. Although, if that's where you are, then ask the question now,
That's
but
right.
even before that.
Yep.
And so, again, it brought me back to you. And it brought me back to, you were dropping some gems, but like when you're not ready to pick it up yet, I just didn't catch it. I'm catching it. I haven't caught it. And
That's it.
and I'm hoping that tonight you can talk to us a little bit about making sure our not only our muscles are strong. Like when I was 20, I was all about, getting thinner, although that never totally happened. um but now it's just about being strong. It's about being able to walk up and down the stairs without right. And it's about, the my bones, hearing so many elderly and particularly elderly women, they fall, they break their hip. And I'm like, why is everyone always breaking their hip? Like, I didn't get it. So I just wondered if you could talk to us tonight just about the importance of it. When should we be thinking about it? How should we be thinking about it? How do we approach when we go to our doctors about any concerns that we have? So that was really what was on my heart and on my mind today. Wondered if you could shed some light.
Yeah, so, the fascinating thing is, and you were talking about getting thinner, and actually it's about getting your body composition right? Because you can be thin, and unfortunately, we have a lot of this going on in the world where people have normal weight or thin looking obesity. So
Mm,
this means that even if they're thin, they have not enough muscle, not enough bone, and
right.
still too much of usually the wrong kind of fat. Because there's good fat too. You don't want to
Right.
be without fat because that would make you very sick as well. So
Mm,
that's the most important thing to remember is getting the balance right in
yeah.
terms of your body composition. Now,
Okay.
interestingly, fat, muscle, and bone, in terms of development, they kind of come from the same group of stem cells. And then they develop into your fat cells or your bone cells or, your muscle cells, okay?
Okay. Okay.
And we think about bone as something that helps, provide structure in our body, gives us our shape, our form, and then we
Yeah.
can hang the muscles on it, right? Slap the muscles on it, and it helps us move, right? But what people forget is that the bone is where all your blood cells are made. You would not have blood, you would not have red blood cells that carry the precious oxygen that you need to survive if you didn't have your bones, because they're made in the bone marrow, right?
Hmm.
You wouldn't have all the defense cells, your white blood cells, your immune cells. Okay? So if you have no bone marrow, again, no bone, you wouldn't have those immune cells. That's where they're
I didn't
born.
know that. I probably skipped AP Bio, but yeah, I didn't know that.
No. Many doctors don't even think about the fact that, it's not just about structure, it's about immune health as well. It's
Yeah.
about the health of your blood.
Yeah.
And the bone itself sends out lots of hormones and chemicals that talk to the brain, talk to the fat cells, and talk to your muscles.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, it's quite complicated and it's very, very advanced. In terms of the science, there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
But we need to stop thinking of your bones as just like being the rack where you hang the muscles on, right? And
Yeah.
that it's actually a factory that makes all these hormones, and it's a factory that actually makes all your immune cells, which is why, if someone doesn't have, people with leukemia, for example, and they need a bone marrow transplant, they kind of just wipe out the bone marrow, and then they have to transplant new cells for the patient so that you can make healthier immune cells
Hmm.
and blood cells, right? So we wouldn't even have blood without the bones,
Huh.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so throughout life, we're constantly, obviously, when you're growing, you're making, all parts of your body, you're growing your brain, you're growing more muscles, you're growing more
Hmm.
fat, you're growing more bone. But throughout life, we have bone remodeling going on because there's always going to be some damage, wear and tear on your bone.
Yeah.
And then we have to fix that. We have to repair that. So the
Hmm.
way we repair bone, we call it remodeling. And hear that term remodeling, it means that you went to the gym or just your daily bumps and daily functional activities cause some damage to the bone. And
Okay.
so there are some bone cells that come up and say, okay, that's damaged bone. We're going to get rid of it.
Okay.
And we resorb the bone. So they kind of actually dissolve the bone, chew up and dissolve the bone. Right?
Okay.
And then
I'm trying to imagine this, and I'm like,
yeah, so I like to visualize it as Pac-Man. Remember the old days, Pac-Man?
okay.
We probably lost some people at that one, but
80s,
remember the
80s, baby. No. We're talking to the right crowd. We know.
okay,
We're
okay,
right here.
all right. So like the Pac-Man chewing up the bone, right? And those cells, they're three sets of bone cells. That group that's chewing up the bone, they actually start as immune cells, by the way. Okay. And they chew up the bone, dissolve it, and now a different group will come and build new bone. Okay. And then you have the last group, which is the main group, and they kind of maintain the bone.
Okay.
So you have that system going on, and you need to have a balance over the course of your lifespan. And estrogen plays an important role because estrogen actually controls the breaking down part. Okay, it can actually kill some of the cells that are breaking down the bone. So it limits the breakdown of bone.
Okay.
It prevents resorption of the bone. Okay, another fancy way to say it prevents that bone from breaking down. And so that you can have a balance that's more positive towards bone building than bone breaking down,
Okay.
right? Now,
Okay.
obviously, when you get to even before menopause, the perimenopausal period, 3, 4 years even before the actual menopause event, you're going to have fluctuating levels of estrogen, and
I
that's already going to be impacting your bone.
I know. I know.
Yeah, right?
That's where we're at.
Yeah. Now, the important thing is, okay, so we go to the doctor. They may do a bone scan, a DEXA bone density, and they may. Now, I just want to point out that that scan looks at the mineral content of bone. So it's looking at the calcium deposits in the bone primarily.
Okay.
Okay. And then based on that test, you may be told that you have osteopenia, which means you have a loss of bone, you have lack of bone, you have a deficit. Osteoporosis is like, okay, big time deficit.
That's
Okay.
literally
So,
like holes in your bones,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So when we see a loss, we already classify that, we call that osteopenia. And then when it's really significant, we call it osteoporosis. Okay. Either way, not good. Right.
Can I
So,
go back really, really quickly? So
mhm,
I've never been asked or suggested that I would get a
a
bone
bone,
scan.
yeah.
So what like should I be asking for it? Is there something that would tell me, because obviously we're not seeing our bones? Like how would we know, or how or when do we ask, or do we ask, or do we have to wait to some event to ask for this bone scan?
I would say in this day and age, ask. And sometimes the reason that it doesn't come up is that, insurance may not pay. It's not an expensive test either, by the way. But you know how insurance is these days.
It's
It
not
really isn't. It's really like an X-ray. It
okay.
the technology it's essentially an X-ray. Okay,
Okay.
so do ask, and there sometimes people with let's say extreme weight loss, malnutrition, if they have inflammatory bowel, those patients, I think we should have more suspicion for bone loss earlier. So even when they're in their 30s and 40s, you probably want to get a bone scan, right? But definitely ask about getting a bone density just to benchmark and know where you stand. And then as you age, you can follow along to see, because one point on the chart isn't gonna okay, we're here now, but are we going up, are we going
Right,
down,
right.
right? Where
Okay.
are we? And it's important to know the direction that we're headed, right?
Okay. So no event. I'm going in for my yearly physical, and I should ask like, "Hey, I've never had a bone scan before. A bone density scan."
Yes,
It's not an odd question to ask,
it's
basically,
not an
right?
odd question. And they might say, sometimes people might say, oh, you're too young, we'll wait till you're, maybe another decade or so, unless you have risk factors, maybe you've had frequent fractures, or you have a family history or something like that, or you're on medication that might affect your bones. So, for example, if you've been on a lot of steroids, okay?
Okay.
But I think that's a conversation to be had because everyone's different and your circumstances will be different. So
Right.
they may say, oh, right now, given your individual medical history, we could wait another 10 years or so. But I think we should start bringing this up earlier.
Okay.
Okay.
Here you're
Now,
seeing still 30s, 40s.
yes,
Okay.
I mean, you're probably not going to get a bone density, exam or study when you're in your 30s and 40s. Okay. But as you get into your 50s and 60s, you should start having that conversation.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now, if you have a family history, like I said, frequent falls, if you have fractures and stuff like that, you're on a lot of steroids, if you have asthma, for example, sometimes people have been on steroids for a long time, or they have some kind of autoimmune disease where they're on steroids. Yeah. So these are considerations where you might think of a bone scan earlier if someone has had, a lot of weight loss. So we've talked about weight loss before, but if you've had bariatric surgery and you've lost a significant amount of weight, you really should have also a bone density, right? And it's not just bariatric surgery. Any significant amount of weight loss, you should be thinking about having the patient have a bone scan to look at the bone density and also body composition, but they don't really do the body composition. Now, especially with the GLP-1s, the medication, now everybody's cousin and neighbor and dog is on the medication, right?
Yeah.
And they are not aware, I think, the prescribers are not really aware that really we should be looking out for bone mass as well, bone mineral content, as the patient starts to lose weight. Okay. Because, when they started talking about Ozempic and that came out and people were like, oh, Ozempic face and all that, right? And I was like, that's any weight loss. And anyone who's ever been in weight loss would know that whether it's from medication or from bariatric surgery or from, lifestyle changes, those are the things to look out for. And that's part of the picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So any significant weight loss, I would say for me, 35 pounds and above, I'd be, and again, it depends on your starting point. If you're somewhat smaller frame, right?
Yeah.
And you've lost 30 pounds, that even 25 might be significant compared to your frame. Yeah. So I think, you need to have that conversation with your doctor.
Okay. Thank you. Because like I said, I wouldn't even have thought, unless, like you said, unless there was that event.
Yeah.
But it also kind of goes back to, why are you always asking me if I fell? Like, why do you think I fell?
That's right.
That's an indication of, like, have you fallen in have you fallen in the last 30 days or something like that is usually the question that's asked. And, so anyway, all right.
And then if they find that you do have osteopenia, so not quite osteoporosis yet, but they're seeing like, okay, your bones going down, your bone mineral content is going down.
Yep.
Then a lot of times, you'll see that people will be put on vitamin D and calcium, because vitamin D does help you absorb calcium, right? It helps in you absorbing the calcium.
Mm-hmm.
But generally what I see is they put people on vitamin D and calcium, and then they try it for a while, come back, do another bone scan and say, oh, it didn't work. Let's put you on medication. And to me, we've missed a whole chunk in between.
Okay.
And the reason for it is that about 50% of your bone is protein. So when you're eating that protein, everybody is thinking about building muscle. But people forget you're also building your bones. What happens is we have protein that is first laid down. It kind of forms a gel. And that gel allows you to deposit the calcium on it. And that calcium makes like a shell. And that becomes your bone. But it's got to be embedded in a gel. And that gel is a protein, it's a collagen. It's collagen 1, right? Type 1 collagen. So without that protein gel, you won't have bone. So when I see a patient that has osteopenia, osteoporosis, and the medical provider has only put them on vitamin D and calcium, I'm like, but your patient is not eating. There is no way they're going to make more bone. Okay? So you do need enough protein. So the protein, I'm going to emphasize, is not just for your muscle.
Yeah.
You are using that protein also to make bone. Okay? So we make this gel, this protein gel matrix, and then we, embed the calcium deposits on it, and that kind of forms a shell that becomes your bone, right? And also, your bone has magnesium in it as well, which affects the microstructure of the bone, makes it stronger. Okay. So we don't have a place to actually store. It's not like we have a storage room in our bodies for calcium or for magnesium, but your bone is acting as that storage. So when you are lacking calcium from your diet, for example, then your body says, oh, go to the bones and get some calcium. Okay. Go to the bones and get some magnesium. Okay. So and magnesium, for example, it's pretty much anyone who gets a magnesium test from their blood is going to have a normal level. Okay, but that does not mean that you don't have a magnesium deficiency. And the reason for that is your bones will try to buffer the blood and keep the blood as even as possible, stable as possible. But you may be lacking total body magnesium, right? And it's just like, okay, we don't have enough magnesium in the blood, and then the bones are just like throwing out the magnesium in the blood to keep it stable. But meanwhile, we are losing total body magnesium in the bones. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So-
no. That makes total sense. I'm surprised that I'm actually following this, but
no. So
No,
that tells me I'm doing a decent job. Okay,
you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. So if you go to your primary care and they do a magnesium blood test, it's gonna be normal. It's gonna be very rare that it's not normal, right?
Okay.
But you have to make sure that your bones have enough magnesium as well. So for me, when someone has poor bone mass, they don't have enough bone, they're getting osteopenia or osteoporosis, I start with the protein. And let me just tell you, there is no way around this. If that person doesn't have enough muscle, they don't have enough bone. Okay? If you don't have enough muscle, you don't have enough bone. Okay? So we call it osteosarcopenia. Remember, osteopenia means lack of bone. Sarcopenia means lack of muscle, but it more accurately is osteosarcopenia. Because, if you don't have enough muscles, likely you're not getting enough protein in. Likely, then you're not building bone either.
Right.
So I start off with making sure you get your protein. Then you have your vitamin D. I do not give calcium supplements. I don't. And that is because, if you look at the cardiac literature, people who take calcium supplements have a higher incidence of complications, cardiac complications, arrhythmias, irregular heart rate, and things like that. Yeah, and higher morbidity and mortality. So I just encourage dietary calcium.
Okay, just being able to do that.
Yeah. So it's pretty old-fashioned for, you go, sometimes they'll say, oh, vitamin D and calcium. And I was like, well, and that's still going to be on the exam. But if you look at the current literature, people are a little bit like hesitant about the calcium because it can cause some problems. So I really try to get the calcium in through the diet with the dairy products and so on.
Okay, so thank you for that. So layman's terms, I need to be stronger.
Yeah.
Right? Because all the insides, the things that are happening on the inside, I can't see. But because the estrogen is decreasing, I should expect for things to kind of go south, right? And so
yes,
there's a reason why I want to be stronger. There's a reason why at this age we talk so much more about protein and about strength and about your muscle and your bone and all of this stuff, and the calcium and the vitamin D, all of this
and the
stuff.
magnesium. The magnesium is very important as well.
And so many different magnesiums, like seriously,
so before we go into that, I just want to point out. So remember the bone scan that you're going to get when your doctor orders that DEXA bone density. That's looking at bone mineral content. It's primarily looking at calcium. Okay. Now, if you look at Asian women, we generally have lower bone mineral content. So we have lower calcium. Okay. But actually we have stronger bones. And usually it's harder for an Asian woman to have a hip fracture than a Caucasian woman. And the same is true with African American women. We may have lower mineral content, but the microstructure, the way that the calcium is laid and the magnesium and all that, the actual structure at the cellular level for us is stronger. And so the bone mineral content may not accurately reflect the risk. Okay, so there's complexity there. And
Right, right,
therefore, you have to look at ethnic differences as well. Because,
right,
we're always like just going by, and I'm just like, well, that's not for everyone. Okay.
right. No,
And
we
that's
know
something I
that to
always
be
try to
true.
pay attention to, because I don't see everyone as one unit. Okay. And
Right.
when I look at the person in front of me, I'm thinking through, okay, for this person, what's going to make sense? Right.
Yeah.
So,
I love
it
that.
may not be that we want to chase only the bone mineral content. I think that the protein content for Asians and African Americans, the protein content, the magnesium content is
Hmm.
important, okay? And then the vitamin D, because both populations also tend to have vitamin D deficiency, high prevalence of vitamin D deficiency. So
Okay.
having all of that, and then again using dietary sources of calcium. Okay.
That is
So,
good.
and then just to complete that, let's just talk about the magnesium. And as you pointed out, there's so many types of magnesium. The ones that your doctor will prescribe is always going to be magnesium oxide, and I don't know why. Actually, I do. I think it's just because when you go through training, you're an intern and your resident writes magnesium oxide. So you look over there, and then when it's your turn to write it, you write the same thing. Okay. And we just think because we don't have any training in nutrition. So nobody's thinking that one type of magnesium is going to matter over another. But
Mhm.
magnesium oxide, which is the most prescribed form of magnesium, is the primary ingredient in milk of magnesia, which, if you realize, is a laxative. Okay? So you pooping all that magnesium out, girl. Going in, going out. Okay. You're not absorbing it. It's just crazy. Right. And
Wow.
so we're just plowing people and slamming laxatives into them. And we're like,
That's
oh, the magnesium isn't going up. Well, yeah, because it's not getting absorbed, and we're just pooping it out.
okay. Like I was today years old when I never thought about milk of magnesia. Like I've never put that
Mm-hmm.
together. Like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
but if you stuck, ladies, go for that magnesium oxide should cure it, right?
wow. Look at
Okay, yeah.
there's
So the magnesium I tend to use for my patients would be magnesium glycinate, okay, which is a chelator. It's basically just attached to a protein, helps you absorb it better.
okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's magnesium glycinate, glycinate.
Okay.
And that's the kind that is more absorbable.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Listen, so I know we only have a few minutes. I want to talk about two more because we can talk
I
forever,
know. I
right?
told you when we start, watch out.
So two things. So I have this program coming up in a couple of weeks called Menopause and Movement, and I decided to have it because there's so many people who we don't talk about menopause enough. We don't talk about, like the what's happening to us, the estrogen levels and the, everything else that's dropping. Right. So I'm having that because I want to talk about that piece. But then I also want the movement part of it because it's so important that we move
Yeah,
and not moving just to move, but again, moving to be stronger, not in our
absolutely.
muscles and our bones. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I also want you to talk about what you're doing because you're doing some good stuff.
See, this
So
is why we tag team, because that's the stuff that, so you just reminded me of the most important thing. So I talked about the nutrition and stuff like that. But we need mechanical loading.
mm,
Okay, so if you're going to build bone, you have to stress your bones, because then it's a signal to your body that, oh, we got to build more bone.
mm,
Okay, because
yeah,
girl, you're getting up every day and you're pounding the pavement, right? So let's build more bone. And the more you move, mechanical loading, um, obviously, if you're doing weight training, that would be great. But body weight is all you need, actually. So the more you walk, you dance, you just go out in the park, go up and down the stairs, the more movement that you
yeah,
have, then you are actually stressing the bone. And remember, stress is not always bad. You just have to have the
Right.
right amount of stress, because the right
Right.
amount of stress is going to tell your body, oh, we need to build more of that bone, because we're damaging some bone as well. So we got to build more,
Right.
right? So hopefully we have the the net to be more bone building, right?
Mm.
And doing the exercise, doing the movement. It doesn't have to be, like you said, formal exercises. The more movement, the more weight
Right.
bearing, the better. So when you go to the store, that's right. You know, when you had the countdown music, I was just like jiving,
Right. It
because
does.
like
You're just
I was just like, Carl knows how to put on. Yeah, they got me moving too. But
yes.
that's exactly right. That the more we move, the more we're informing our body that we need to build not only bone but muscle. Okay,
Yes.
because it's a movement is a signal. And I just want to also emphasize, for those of you who are worried about, as you're growing older, dementia and so forth, really
Yeah.
the biggest protection for your brain, because once you stop moving, your brain is going to start shrinking.
Mm.
Right, your brain is for movement. The primary reason we have a brain really is to move. Okay.
Wow.
And
It tells.
so movement is really, really important. And the more types of movement you incorporate, and in fact, I always talk about dance as protective against dementia and memory loss, right? And cognitive aging, because it puts you through unfamiliar movement patterns over and over. Okay.
Ah,
So today we might be doing, this kind of movement, but tomorrow we might incorporate, right? And every time your brain is taking in that information and saying, wait, okay, how do we do that? And how do I coordinate that with my leg, right? And so there's a lot of cognitive restructuring going on, and
I
movement
love that.
and dance has been shown to be protective against dementia. Dance
It makes so
specifically,
much sense.
more than chess, more than, I don't know, those computer puzzles that you play for
Yeah.
brain health. No, no, no. You got to get out on that dance floor.
So everyone needs to come then
You got to
to.
get out there, have Mr. Aline turn on that music,
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
And
He'll
get
be
us going.
okay. I love that. Thank you so much. So I knew a lot about the as far as the strength, but I didn't think about that in regards to um the avoiding
Cognitive.
dementia so much or the
Okay, we're going to do a whole episode on the
okay, okay.
brain,
All
a
right.
whole
Yes,
new
we
one.
will. When I
Right.
have you back.
But meanwhile, I just wanted to tell people that, yeah, what I do, all that information that I've been bringing, let's say, on the bone, on muscle, right, on fat, different types of fat. So that's called metabolic reprogramming. And I run a
Mm,
3-month group online coaching program.
mhm.
And this is primarily to get people to their optimal functioning level, right? Because here we have this amazing, amazing instrument, and for a long time we've had a instruction manual that is out of date, and now we have an updated version that tells us, how to dial things to a better degree and fine tune everything and get us to optimal health.
Yeah.
So over the 3 months, we use I have people use a continuous glucose monitor for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And also, I have an Aura ring that tracks my sleep. It tracks also my heart rate variability, which gives us an idea of stress, right? So we're
Okay.
looking at some hormonal effects and stress and stuff like that. And then we meet and we look at the results, and we also get some labs through your primary care. And then we can talk about what's happening in your body, because the
Nice.
problem is we're always just like general, right? But what exactly, when you eat X, what is happening to your
Yes.
body, not Joanne's body, not
Right.
Jesse's body. It's your body that we're
Right.
interested in, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's what I do. And if
Cool.
people are interested, they can always book some time with me so we can talk over. Yeah, thanks, Carl. So he put up my flyer, and there's a little QR code that you can scan and just have an information session with me so we can talk about what's the best way to redesign your body.
Right. In our bodies, I love the way that you described, if you can leave that up for just a couple of minutes. One time you described our bodies as this vehicle, we got
Yes.
one. We
Yes.
got this one special body,
Yes.
and it has so much going on inside of it, but it is designed to move, and it's designed to be strong, and it's designed to help us live better and just great lives. We're not supposed to be, laid up, not doing much
That's
of
right.
anything. And so I love what you're doing. I love the service that you provide. I love that you have decided to look so much deeper than just what you have been taught, and you're really bringing it to people so that they can understand it for themselves. It is a fantastic program. I've been on your discovery call. It is wonderful. So thank you so much for all that you do, all that you continue to do. I thank you in advance for coming back, because we've got a lot of things to talk about.
We do.
We
Yeah.
can bring it back.
And I just want to also point out that estrogen's effects is not just on women, that most of a lot of the beneficial effects that we see from testosterone is actually coming from estrogen.
Yeah.
Because in men, that testosterone is broken down, a small percentage is broken down into estrogen, and the bone effects are just as applicable to men. Okay.
Yeah.
And actually working through the estrogen as well. So, how much fat you have, all of this we think of primarily in women, but the men in our lives are also impacted by estrogen because their bodies convert the testosterone. And if you don't have that conversion, you don't have a lot of the benefits that you see from testosterone.
Wait a minute, I didn't hear that. Like, if we don't have the conversion, we don't have what?
We don't have the benefits that we see from testosterone. So, we traditionally say, oh, if you give men testosterone, it's better for, let's say, fat burning and their muscle mass and so forth, and their bone mass, right? But actually, we have neglected that testosterone, it is converted to estrogen, and it's the effects of the estrogen that we're looking at. See what I mean? Behind the scenes, always the women.
Always. I love it. Vyvyane, Dr. Loh, thank you so much for, again, the walk-in encyclopedia that you are. But more than that, it is because how much you care about individuals and helping them to be their very best. So thank you so much for all that you do. We look forward to the next time. We'll figure it out in the next quarter when to have you back on. And thank you for taking time out of your day, because you are 4 hours behind. Where are you? I don't know.
3 hours.
3 hours
But
behind.
I always have a blast. I always
Oh.
have a blast when I come on the show with you.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone who tuned in. We thank you so very much for coming. I want to remind you that we have Menopause and Movement that's coming up on January. No, June 22nd.
Hey, summer. Yes.
It's
summertime. That's what
summertime.
You do. Yeah.
And it's going to be fantastic. So again, we're going to be learning about menopause and perimenopause in particular. We're going to be talking about symptoms, but we're going to be talking about relief as well. We're going to be talking about the underlying, not only the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone, like all of that stuff. We'll be talking about that. And then we are going to move, because as Dr. Loh reminded us, is that it's not just for our muscles, it is for our bones, but it's also for our brain. Oh my gosh, we got a lot of stuff to do. So make sure that you come, make sure that you bring a friend, make sure you bring some sneakers. It is going to be so fun. So fun.
I wish I could be there.
I wish that you could be here too. Next time, we'll figure it out.
All right.
All right. Until then, have an incredible night, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Conversations with Teresa. Peace out.